What do you get when you take foraged ingredients, a spoonful of pettiness, and a big old cup of patriotism? Liberty tea.
He's going deep into the cookbooks of history to recreate the recipes long forgotten. He is the time-traveling chef.
Today I'm going to make a few blends, in particular, one that almost poisoned me called the Indian lemonade, and a few others that have very bizarre, unique flavor profiles. But before I do that, let's get the kettle going and discuss what is Liberty tea. Now let's dive into the history. The year was 1773, and the winds of rebellion were beginning to sweep across the American colonies. On a brisk December night, a group of Freemasons, disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped an entire shipment of British tea into the icy waters below. This defiant act, forever known as the Boston Tea Party, was more than a protest against taxation without representation. It was a turning point, a symbolic gesture that demanded a new era in American history. As John Adams later described it, this destruction of tea is so bold, so daring, so firm, so intrepid. It must have so important consequences and so lasting that I cannot but consider it as an epocha in history. But the rebellion didn't end there. For the colonists, it was unthinkable to give up their cherished daily ritual of tea. They needed an alternative to King George's brew, and thus, the resourceful women of the colonies turned to the wild landscape around them, creating what they would proudly call Liberty tea. This was no mere beverage. It was a patriotic statement, a protest in a cup, and a symbol of defiance that rivaled the grandest speeches and boldest acts of rebellion. No, the creation of Liberty tea wasn't just a culinary experiment. It was a revolution of its own kind. Colonial women, with their delicate teapots and elegant tea tables, rejected British imports in favor of what they described as some of the more salutary herbs of their own country. They introduced their neighbors to a new flavor that was native, fresh, and fiercely American. As one patriot proudly proclaimed, this homemade tea was as good as any other tea, and much more wholesome in the end. But it wasn't just about flavor. There was a public relations battle to be won, and those promoting the boycott of English tea were quick to malign the imported leaves. Some whispered that the foreign brew was poisonous, causing everything from stomach trouble to the most frightful nervous disorders. Others claimed it was full of vermin, bread lice, and fleas. Dirty feet stomping the leaves firmly into tea chests for export. It was propaganda, sure, but it was a powerful propaganda. To replace British tea, colonists turned to a surprising variety of local herbs and plants. In New England, raspberry leaves, goldenrod, and even red sumac berries were popular choices. The sumac berries, when boiled, yielded a tangy, lemony beverage known as Indian lemonade tea. In North Carolina, colonists brewed yipan tea, using a native herb that thrived in the sandy soil along the coast. Women gathered leaves of strawberry and raspberry, mint and sage, and blossoms of linden and elder to concoct their own blends, creating Liberty tea menus as varied as the regions from which they came. The creation of Liberty tea wasn't just a matter of necessity, it was a community effort. Women rallied together, hosting gatherings at local parsonages, distributing petitions, and pledging to ban British tea from every household. As the revolution gathered steam, the popularity of Liberty tea surged. Colonists experimented with drying and blending flowers like chamomile and violet, tree bark like sassafras and willow, and seeds of fennel and dill. They even added dried fruits such as apples, strawberries, blueberries to create sweetened versions that children would love. But these homemade teas were more than just local replacements. They were an act of defiance, a proclamation that the colonists would not bow to British rule. When the boycotts deepened, one patriot urged his fellow countrymen to let us abjure the poisonous, baneful plant and its odious infusion, not an account of the physical qualities, but an account of the political disease and death that are connected with every particle of it. The Boston Tea Party may have sparked the rebellion, but Liberty tea sustained it, becoming a daily reminder of what the colonies were fighting for. With each sip, Americans toasted not just the herbs and fruits of their land, but the freedom they so desperately sought. So the next time you raise a cup of tea, whether it's a modern brew or a colonial blend, Remember the courage of those early patriots, the women who turned their teapots into tools of revolution, who crafted a drink that nourished both body and soul, and who, in the face of an empire, proudly declared, "Give me liberty tea or give me death." So for the first tea, the one that almost poisoned me, called Indian lemonade, here's what happened. It's made with sumac. It's basically just sumac berries that steep in hot water, and it makes a nice, tangy, lemony flavored beverage. Well, I was foraging around my own garden for the sage and mint, lavender, everything else, and I thought, oh, well, I know down the road there's sumac. Well, that's poison sumac. I didn't realize there were two different kinds. Luckily, I did a little bit of research, so I went out and I bought the correct kind of sumac that I know is safe to eat, but that really could have been a bad day. So I am going to start off by just pouring some of these sumac berries right into my little tea cup. And now, well, let's add the water first. And then we'll add this. Okay, so this has cooled down and it's steeped long enough. The Indian lemonade, again, this is just sumac berries, not poison sumac. Supposedly lemony, tangy. Very tangy. Was not expecting that. It's also very hot still. I could drink this, 100%. Actually, I think I would prefer to have this iced, but this is really nice. It's just a really good fruity tea. So some of the tea recipes that were used at the time had dried fruits, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, apples, you name it. If they grew it, they dried it, they tea'd it. So what I'm gonna do is dry out some fruit myself and try that in some of these blends. For the blackberries, I have already in my head, I know that they're not going to dry well. So I'm going to quarter them first, and hopefully that makes a little bit of a difference. Now for the herbs, I'm gonna dry out some that I've picked from my own garden. I have a huge little bushel, I have a huge bushel of, I don't know if it's a bushel, of sage here. I'm gonna just pick some of these off. It's probably one of my favorite herbs. It is my favorite herb. So I'll throw those in. I have some fresh picked peppermint, lavender, some thyme. Should do a little bit more thyme there. We have rosemary. This I bought from the last video. Marjoram. I'm gonna try it. And this will be a weird one in tea, but parsley. And they're all pretty much dry, so I'm gonna start making these teas. The next concoction here that I'm gonna make is a bay leaf and rosebud tea. So I'm just gonna break down some of these large, that's an apple slice there. Some of these bay leaves. And the rose hips. Not rose hips, but roses. So again, all I'm doing is being like the men and women of the revolution with Liberty Tea, just making their own blends. I'm just kind of taking some of these dried ingredients and making my own concoctions, seeing what's gonna work. And hopefully I surprise myself. That is surprisingly nice. It's very light, very mellow. I thought that the roses were gonna come through really strong. Not at all. You're gonna have to try this one. Roses and bay leaf, that's a win. That's a 9 out of 10. So next, I'm gonna take some dried apple, chamomile, hibiscus, and parsley, and see how that turns out. Ooh. Chamomile. And lastly, some parsley. This tea is, again, chamomile, hibiscus, apple, and parsley. The color, right away, I expected it. Hibiscus, hibiscus lemonade is one of my favorite drinks during the summer. But this already I can smell is very unique. Chin chin. I don't like that. It's just maybe the blend of it all together I don't like. Nah, not a fan of this blend. This is a 5 out of 10. So for this next one, what I think is gonna be a really nice combination, blackberry and sage. That's nice. So I always see blackberry sage iced tea at the grocery store, and I haven't tried it yet, but I always walk by and I'm like, ooh, that sounds nice. I want to try and make that one day. I definitely will, because this flavor is really something. This is my favorite right now. 10 out of 10. Blackberry sage tea, you gotta try this one. So for this next one, I did marjoram, thyme, lavender, and strawberry. We'll see how this one ends up. Sorry, it's a little bit of a unique color. Not what I was expecting. That's nice. That's weird. I really thought I was gonna hate that. It's not amazing, it's not earth-shattering, but it's good. It's a really nice tea. It's coming through most is the lavender. There's some sweetness from the strawberries. And then there's something else that I can't put my tongue to. Must be the thyme and the marjoram. This is a keeper. It's a 7 out of 10. Okay, for this last one, it's gonna be rosemary, blueberry, peppermint. So again, rosemary, blueberry, peppermint. All right, the last tea of the night. I'm on to something here. It's like summer and Christmas just came together. That blueberry and peppermint flavor kind of goes well together. And then there's this rosemary, this real holiday flavor that comes through. I like it. Maybe I'm weird. I am weird. But this is one to try. 8.5 out of 10. So hot.